Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search, marketing, and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is John D. Saunders. No, not John P. Saunders, the late, great Canadian-American sports journalist who kept us informed on all things life in sports at both ESPN and ABC until the time of his death in 2016. God rest his soul. But I'm talking about John D. as in domain Saunders, a value-based digital marketing strategist and serial entrepreneur with a great passion for providing actionable tactics to streamline and build profitable brands. Today, John and I dive deep into the backstory of why and how he founded 54digital.com. We discuss how 54digital.com led to the launching of Blackwalletorg, blackillustrations.com, and IllustratorHub.com. John also shares how he qualifies purchasing and developing domain names from an end user perspective as an entrepreneur and digital marketing strategist. And last but not least, John discusses domain extensions and his firsthand experience educating and serving customers in naming and building brands that uniquely stand the test of time. So with that, John, welcome and thank you for making time to join us today.
Alvin, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. And thank you for that intro, man. You got me hyped
up. No worries.
I'm excited.
I finally put two and two together I was like, man, why does your name sound so familiar? Yes. And it wasn't until I was like, it seems like I've known a John Saunders somewhere down the line. And then it dawned on me. I was like, wait, ESPN. And so it's
yes,
like,
man, yes.
Put the two and two together. I was like, oh, okay. Well, he's John D. Saunders, and that was John P. Saunders. So that is awesome.
That's exactly why I use the D in my name, because I have to differentiate. He's a legend, you know what I mean, and that helps me kind of differentiate myself from.
Certainly. Well, let's talk about differentiation. So, to kick things off, John, briefly share at a high level with our listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your personal and professional background.
Yeah, definitely. So I started in this space, I want to say when I was a kid, right? I always had like this creativity side where I would write short stories about my friends and I going on these adventures. I would read Goosebumps and Animorphs because my mom would make us read before we could go outside. So she's like, oh, you want to go outside? You want to go swimming? You want to play basketball? You need to read a little bit. And so I really I really formed an affinity toward reading, writing, and just that creativity. So around 19 or 20 was when I really wanted to move into a marketing or creative space in regards to working at an agency. But at that time I was working at a bank. It was okay. It was great because I was able to learn like financial literacy skills. And, that's where I got my 401k and was able to buy my first home. But ultimately, I wanted to work in a creative agency environment. So I went to the literal corporate headquarters of the bank and I was like, listen, I want to work in marketing. What can I do to help? I brought my little book of ads that I had like cut out and made. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then they just kind of like pushed me back home. So I was like, all right, I need to do some internships. I need to get my feet wet. So I went and did a couple of internships. One of those internships being at Allied Advertising, which was an agency that focused on movie releases. So we would get all these like really dope movie posters. We would promote the movies. And essentially I was an intern. So I would be getting coffee. I would be wrapping mail. I was doing all that type of stuff. And then I did another internship that was similar at an agency while I was working at the bank. So I was at the bank, going to school, just finishing up a public communication degree. And then I was doing these two internships and I still couldn't get a job. And I'm like, man, why can't I break into this industry? So finally, I went in for an interview at this agency in Fort Lauderdale, and they were a small, like 4-person team. I was like, listen, I'll work hard, whatever you guys need, I'm there. And they ended up hiring me. And dude, I was so excited. I was primarily doing web design and social media then. So I was writing HTML, CSS, really simple stuff, doing WordPress sites. And while I was there, I was really forming this acclamation towards like web design because my mom had wanted to start a side business. And so I went online, I looked up on YouTube, I found these video trainings, and I was able to build her a WordPress site. And people were able to go on the site, complete the form, and she was a teacher. So it was great because I was able to take this idea and make it something tangible. And that's when that light clicked where I was like, you know what, I want to be in this industry. So while I'm at the agency, I'm growing, I'm developing my skills. I spent about 4 years there learning from the CEO and developing all my skills. And I ended up becoming the marketing director looking over clients like Land Rover, Range Rover, Audi at the dealership level. So it was a completely automotive dealership agency. And so after that 4 years, I was like, you know what? I want to branch out. I want to help SMBs, small businesses, startups. So I was like, I think I have enough to start my own agency. And that was 6 years ago. So I left. I started 5-4 Digital with the intent to build this agency completely remotely. Now, back then, people were like, oh, you can't build a company remote. You need to have an office. Clients need to know you have this. They need to have that. And I was like, I think it would be better used if I could take this money that I'm making and be able to compensate really talented people both here and offshore, and be able to save that overhead on an office and all those things. And so that was a huge transition. And it was great because you look at today, the transition from pre-COVID to now was pretty seamless because we already had all the processes in place. So by opening my web design agency, man, it has been a wild ride. It's been super, super dope. And I've been able to meet and work with a lot of dope clients.
Now your mom, so you said your mom was a teacher?
Yes, 33 years.
Wow, 33 years. So I'm assuming then you come from a line then of educators.
Yeah, man. My mom, she would have all the workbooks. We always had school supplies, you know. And she worked in an area down here in South Florida called Miami-Dade, which is, you know, it's predominantly Black area, and she taught hundreds of students, man. And it was really dope because she had a different approach to teaching, and she made it fun and engaging, and it's really great. It was really great.
Right now that teaching bug then didn't go too far from you because you wound up doing a bit of teaching yourself, I guess, with Udemy.
Yeah. So my first course was on web design on Udemy. I sold it for like $30 or $40, and there was a complete like course on how to build a website using WordPress, which is a content management system that a majority of websites run on. So I built the course, and we got to about 1,900 students, which I thought was amazing.
Wow.
This was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And so it made me realize that, one, people wanted to learn this skill, and it was a tangible skill that they could resell and reuse. And then I realized that it was a great stream of income that was set aside from the agency, right? Because when you sign on a client for a web design or brand identity project, you need to execute that work over the time of 8 to 12 weeks. With a course, you might work on that for 8 to 12 weeks, but then you can resell it over and over and over and over again. And there's no real overhead because it's a digital product.
Interesting. So 1,900 students then. Wow. So was this one course or was it?
It was one course. That was my first foray into courses. It took me probably 4 months to create the course. My biggest advice to folks that are looking to get into these type of businesses is to set up standard operating procedures within your company, because it kind of works like this, right? With 5-4 Digital, we're a web design agency. Now, in order to facilitate a large amount of projects, we usually work on about 8 to 10 projects. I've created SOPs. So we have executable steps that we follow for every single project. Now, when you do that, you're able to delegate to your team. So essentially, I'm a project manager. So I'm overlooking the projects. I'm coming up with the concepts. I'm looking at big picture, and I'm able to delegate to my team. And now I'm creating these processes, right? So when I create these processes, it's almost like I'm gift wrapping them, creating them, and having them set up. So that way I can resell that as a course to someone else. Gotcha. So not only am I building systems within my business for it to function essentially without me, I'm able to gift wrap that and then resell it to others that are looking to do the same thing.
Right. Now, and it's interesting that you bring that up because even in domain investing, that's probably one of the hardest things or one of the most challenging things that I believe most domain investors, just because it's built around them, it's built around their knowledge. And so it tends to be a bit challenging to scale to get a John D. Saunders to start thinking like, Alvin Brown. It's like, how do you basically duplicate, yourself, or what I like to call passing yourself through the eye of the needle? It's like when you do that, then that opens the door exponentially to growth. But at the same time, like you said, it's a seamless, streamlined process that's just easily repeatable. Everybody gets it. But like you said, it serves your business well. But at the same time, it likely also brings you into new courses and such. Now, you mentioned what was it? 5-4 Digital. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that. Just the
Yeah.
name in and of itself. Like, what is 54 Digital?
So 54 stands for 54th Street in Brooklyn, and it's a neighborhood where my aunts and my uncles live. It's where we grew up. It's where we had pool parties, where we had amazing times, July 4th, and so it was a culmination of family and just camaraderie, right? Community. And so 54 is a reflection of that. It's, we take a grassroots approach to design. It's very one-on-one. It's very community based. It's very in with the client, right? So that's why we're able to be selective with clients, because we're able to go in and really choose the clients we want to collaborate with and become almost like a family unit, right? Where everybody has a role and everybody's contributing to the project. So that's where the idea for, the name 54 came out.
And so for those that are wondering, 54 Digital. So the number 5 and then 4 spelled out FOUR digital.com. So why the combination of I guess the letters or rather the alphanumeric approach there?
That's a great question. So in most domain like etiquette, you don't want to mix numbers and letter. You don't want to mix numbers and letters because it can confuse people when they see it. But the main reason that I did it was to, one, differentiate ourselves, and two, I'm able to get these really easy domains that I could put on shirts and apparel and different things like that. So it's I literally have the domain, the number 5, FOUR.com, which is a super short domain that redirects to 54 Digital. So I just did it to really differentiate. I wasn't really worried about, the organic rankings because we have the reviews to pull folks in. So that was my kind of logic behind that.
Now, do you own, I guess, 54 actually just spelled out?
Yes, I have 54, the number 5, FOUR. I have 54 Digital spelled completely out as well. So that way, if someone types it in, it still brings them back to the website.
Gotcha. And that's one of the things that, and like, you're a digital marketing strategist. So it's, trying to teach customers or end users kind of what a good domain is versus a bad domain. You can come across some wild contraptions of, replacing S's with Z's. Yeah. It's just like, by the way it sounds like I would have typed in 2 S's, but here it is. We're typing in 2 Z's and losing traffic probably to the correct spelling, which it's interesting because that brings me to a point of I was out walking the other day and I passed a sign that basically said, "Go clean Texas." All right, so you just heard me say "Go clean Texas." How do you think they spelled it?
Go clean, GOCLEANTEXAS.
Unfortunately, no. It was GOKLEEN Texas. So TXAS. Go clean Texas. I got home. I didn't even get home. I was like a block, down the street, pulling out my phone, looking. And Go clean Texas, the way it should be spelled, there it is, available.
No way.
And so you're like, that's the cardinal sin. Like you,
pretty bad. It was available. Like that's bad.
Yeah, it was available at hand registration cost, and it makes it just think like that. Obviously, the light bulb goes off for both of us because we just go, no, that's a big no-no. Like you've got to own your brand. And you've got to own the variations of your brand. And so, it's just interesting. And that was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me when because I think I ran across you on Twitter somehow or another. I can't remember what I saw, but I remember seeing that. And then I remember thinking, I was like, 54 Digital, like there has to be a story to why he chose 54 Digital. So that's interesting. So how long have you been operating this company, this venture?
6 years.
6 years.
So as an entrepreneur, man, it's been great. I mean, of course, it has ups and downs, but ultimately, I wouldn't have the lifestyle I have now if I didn't jump out on my own.
Now, you're based in Florida, right?
I'm in Florida, South Florida.
South Florida, good weather, good time.
Yeah, man. I'm about 30 minutes north of Miami.
Okay, interesting.
In the burbs.
So then tell me this, what then is your vision for 54 Digital?
My vision is to maybe scale our efforts 20 to 30% more and keep on going. Because here's my thing. A lot of people they have certain goals, and I get it. You know what I mean? Oh, I want to make $10 million. I want to make $15 million. You know, for me, it's more about being successful in the business, but then also having that life balance where I can take off a Wednesday or I could leave for a week and come back. You know what I mean? And so for me, 5-4 Digital is a catalyst for everything else. It's the way that we can build a solid, cohesive team where we can, one, serve clients. So that's a big piece of our income, right? Two, we can build our own internal projects, right? So we take our projects or ideas that we have and we funnel that through like almost like a client. So if I have an idea, it almost becomes one of our clients, and then we monetize it. And so 5-4 Digital acts like the catalyst because we're able to get paid by clients, we're able to get paid for our other projects, and I'm able to free up more time by building and developing this team. And so for me, it's about having these businesses run concurrently, making them profitable, and then almost pulling myself out of them so that I can focus on big picture. So my ultimate goal, if we're talking 5-10 years, is to have a building, make it be an incubator. So we take entrepreneurs, we take businesses into that building, we help them grow, we help them develop, we do business development, we take a percentage, maybe 2%, 3%, and then we send them on their way. And I would like to put it in an area where there's a lot of Black entrepreneurs or young Black kids that are looking to get into entrepreneurship, because I think that that's going to be a gap that we need to bridge, because if our folks have access to that tech, I mean, it's one of those things where we can build all these really cool products, and it's just, I think we need to have that platform.
Interesting. So then 5-4 Digital acts as the catalyst that opens the door to pretty much all these other avenues. So for instance, I think you also operate Blackwalletorg. And so, share with the listeners a little bit about, how 5-4 Digital actually kind of got you down the path and towards blackwallet.org.
Absolutely. So 2.5 years ago, I've been into financial literacy for a while because I'm all about generational wealth, right? I feel as though I don't want to work super hard. I want to work smart. And there are times when I have to go in, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I want to have a lifestyle where I have the freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And so I'm always looking for financial tips, financial tricks, and things to grow wealth. So I go on websites like NerdWallet and Penny Hoarder and all these websites that provide tips, and they're great. But a lot of them speak to, an urban audience. So I was like, you know what? Let's make our own blog. We'll call it blackwallet.org, and we'll create a financial literacy blog for urban millennials. And so I went to the community and I said, hey, what kind of content are you looking for? What are you looking to create and have? So I always recommend folks that are looking to start a project or create something to develop a community around it. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be 17,000 people. It could be a few dozen people that are dialed into your niche, and just ask them what they're looking for. We essentially made a Facebook group, and I asked questions in that group of what people needed. And based on the feedback, we would write these articles and have them posted. Now, the articles were just informative information. That was it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't biased. It wasn't, hey, choose this or do this. It was, hey, if you're opening a business and you're looking for tax deductions, here's a complete list of all the deductions that are available. And then it's like, oh, or we try to tie in our culture with an example with Nipsey Hussle, the entrepreneur who passed away.
Right.
He has a line in his song. He's like, $1 million on my flesh. So we took the line of that song and we made it a blog about life insurance and how folks get life insurance, and how a lot of people don't realize that you can get $1 million policy as long as you're in reasonable health.
Right.
Less than $2 a month. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of creating this content and getting it out to the community, and then getting feedback from the community. And that was one of the biggest pieces. That's why last year when I wrote the book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Building Wealth from $1, I literally crowdsourced that book because I asked that community, okay, here's a chapter 1 through 10. What do you guys think? Oh, John, you should add this or change this. Okay, here are 4 different covers. Which cover do you like the most? I like cover number 2. Most of the votes go to number 2. Now we have 4,000 people in that group. So we have a good focus group to ask questions and get feedback. And so my biggest advice to anyone out there is, build your community, focus on building a community. It doesn't have to be a ton of people, and then just get information, collect as much information as you can, so that way you can make informed decisions on what you want to do and what you'll provide to that community.
That's an interesting approach, that you used a Facebook group, built a Facebook group, then it help you to generate content for your site. And, because for most people these days, it's a matter of, well, I don't know how to build a website. So most people are like, I don't need a website. I'll just go and use Facebook or Twitter, and that'll be my site, if you will. Obviously, the downside to that is, well, what if you get kicked off? Or, what if basically it becomes who owns the content? Do you own the content, or does Facebook own the content? So I think that's an interesting point there that I'm pulling out in terms of how you use Facebook ultimately to launch your web presence. And it's not it seems like it's a dance that both of those are integrated together. So you're going to the well, if you will, with your folks of, hey, what do you all think about this? Hey, what topics are you looking for? But then you're pulling them over to your site to actually probably do more in-depth education rather than just just high-level questioning, which is a good thing. I think it's an awesome thing. And so, if you're a domain developer that's out there that's listening to this, that's one thing to kind of take note on. If you're planning to build your site, think about how you can use social media to really, like John said, create a focus group that'll then help you to, build out, start building out or developing your site. So then, John, so why the name blackwallet.org? Like, were there other names that you considered, or was this just the first thing that came to mind and it was available?
No, great question. When it comes to domains, having like an SEO background, I'm really focused on creating keyword combinations that are short, usually 1 to 2 words if I can. I work hard to get the .com usually because, that's the holy grail. So for me, it was really about finding a 2-word combination that worked well, that would look good when someone typed it in, that was easy to remember. And so .com, of course, was taken, and that was, the guy wanted like, I don't even know, 5-10 grand or something like that, which I didn't have at that point. But ultimately, it started as a side hustle. So I was like, what kind of domain can I get that wouldn't cost me a ton? And I found blackwallet.org was available. I'm like, what, .org could work. We are, we're more so focused on providing value. We're still a profit-based business, but we're focused on value first. And I didn't monetize that business for months. So for me, it was just finding something short, concise, easy to remember, and that would look great in the logo.
Awesome. So then you went from blackwallet.org to, I guess, blackillustrations.com?
Yes, that was, what a lot of times when I'm looking for a domain, I'll start with keyword research. So I'll look at what keywords people are looking for, what searches they're making, and then based on those searches, I'll be able to filter that traffic. So one example, Black Illustrations was when I saw it was available, I was like, yo, I just snatched this up ASAP because it's a great domain.
Right.
And it was only $12. I was like, I got to get this. I was shocked that it was that cheap. So I grabbed it up, and then I started to build a brand around that. And now, so a lot of folks don't realize, but you can actually create Google search based on the keyword that you're creating if your site gets enough traffic. So now before Black Illustrations wasn't getting a lot of searches, maybe getting like 250 to 500. Now it's getting around 15 to 1600 searches per month based on the domain that we created. One, it's super easy to remember. And 2, it explains explicitly what is on the website in 2 words.
So Black Illustrations. So what exactly is Black Illustrations? Like, what, as an end user, if I go there, how am I going to use that site?
So blackullustrations.com is a platform to find beautiful illustrations featuring Black people for your digital projects. So whether you're doing a presentation, you have a website, you're creating a dashboard or a platform, and you need visuals that show Black people, then you can go to the site and you can either download our free illustration packs or download our premium illustration packs. And so we have education, we have activism, we have disability images, lifestyle images, office and medical images. So the biggest thing is especially people of color and Black folks, were just not represented in illustrations that much. I know this because I've done over 250 websites. We use illustrations all the time, and it's hard to find illustrations featuring people of color. If you do find people of color, it's literally just a white person that's been darkened. The hair texture, everything else, doesn't necessarily match. So, we did this to facilitate a need, and I felt like it was something that the culture needed, and it's been a wild ride, to say the least.
And how long has it? Because it's your, I guess, your youngest baby, if you will. Because it's not been out that long. A couple months or?
We launched in mid-April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Mid-April, and it's the end of August at the time that we're recording this. And so shoot, that's what, 5-6 months?
Yeah, man, it's brand new.
So hold up. So COVID happens, and here you are out here launching another business venture. Like, what goes through your mind?
It's weird, man. It was almost like a light bulb, because I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, man, I can never find illustrations of like Black people. And, there's just not enough out there. And this goes back to 5-4 Digital being that catalyst, right? I already have the infrastructure for this.
Mm-hmm.
If someone had this idea, they would have to go and find a designer. They would have to do a website. They would have to learn all these different things. Having an agency makes it so much easier to launch these projects. So I was like, all right, we're just going to do it. So I started sketching out the illustrations. I sketched out the website, and then we worked together. And within 2.5 weeks, the site was up. And today we've done 45,000 downloads. We've had over 500,000 visitors to the website. It's been phenomenal. And every 2 weeks, we're coming out with new illustration packs. And again, going back to the group dynamic, we have a form on the website that's had about 800 people fill it out, where I ask, hey, what illustrations are you looking for? Then I'll go into that search. I'll pick up the keywords that are mentioned the most, and then we'll base the next illustration pack on that. So a lot of people were mentioning STEM. We did it. We just finished a STEM pack. A lot of people were mentioning like lifestyle pics of families. Boom, we did the family pack. I need education images. We did an image illustration pack. So everything that we're doing and all these decisions that we're making are based on feedback from our audience.
I guess how much of the social unrest has played into actually boosting the site? I mean, has it had an impact on it or not really?
Alvin, I'm glad you asked that, because I honestly think we got lucky, and it's not, I hate to use the word luck, but I really think that, one, we launched prior to George Floyd's passing, and that was a really rough time, because that was when everything took to a certain point, because you literally saw this man on camera for 9 minutes saying he couldn't breathe.
Right.
So I think, people outside of Black people were seeing, now they're literally seeing on camera this man being killed in front of our eyes. Right. So I think that was the change or the shift. Then COVID happened. Right. So now you have a culmination of a worldwide pandemic and systemic racism all coming together. And it's like a huge, explosion of just people all over. So, I think that at that point, a lot of people were like, I want to support Black business. I need to support Black businesses. I need to see more imagery of Black people. And, that was, we had the platform there, and we had already picked up steam. When that happened, it skyrocketed. So when it did happen, the day after, I was like, we need to do a movement pack, and we need to create an illustration pack and create it and give it to our audience so that they can use it for their activism, their posters. So it has Black Lives Matter. It has people holding up the fist. It's just imagery that can help with that. And so we launched that day after, and man, it was, we were seeing it on flyers. We were seeing people with posters at events, and it was crazy, man. And so I just wanted to do my part and somehow in helping, and that was that.
So what'd you say? 500,000 visitors?
500,000 visitors, yeah.
500,000 visitors. So then, kind of like with Blackwalletorg, kind of what's your vision or long-term goal for blackillustrations.com?
It's to keep growing it. I want to have hundreds of illustration packs of people from all walks of life, from all different populations, especially people of color. I think it's important to see for kids, for people to see themselves in these illustrations and these images, having someone in my family that has a disability, now we have a disability pack where they can see themselves in an image portrayed, So for me, I just want to be creating illustrations that are reflective of real people.
And so what do you think that does for like self-worth, self-value, being able to see oneself, appropriately?
I think it helps. It's a great way for people to see themselves in a digital aspect. So one example is on my personal website. I have my illustration that I made kind of modeled after me, and it feels good, man. You get affirmation and confirmation that, hey, I'm here, and it's just a great way for people to see themselves in a digital space.
Interesting. So then jumping from blackillustrations.com, so you wound up with illustratorhub.com. So kind of walk us through where this came from. Was this more that Black Illustrations birthed it? Like, it's like, which one, chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Which of these came first?
Exactly. So Illustrator Hub is pretty much, it's part of Black Illustrations. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even count it as like a separate business. It's more just, so what happened with Black Illustrations is we get a lot of inquiries for folks wanting to do custom illustrations. Now we'll do it at an enterprise level, but we can't handle the influx of traffic for people that are looking for illustrations or illustrators. So I was like, you know what? Why don't because I looked around and I didn't see any platforms out there. There were a few that had like Black illustrators or Black designers, but none of them showed that person's profile and their style of illustrations. It was just kind of like their name and their Twitter handle. So I was like, okay, let's build a platform. So, because I was like, you know what? If we can't facilitate this work, we can give it to other Black illustrators that can do it, or that can grab it. So we created IllustratorHub.com. It's a platform for people looking, or companies looking for illustrators. It's really clean, and you can go there, check their profile, send them an email. There's no opt-in, there's no sign-in. It's just a platform for people to find great illustrators.
Awesome. So then you're basically being the middleman, if you will, of basically trying to help people get connected and enter into relationship with one another.
Yeah, and we've had dozens of people already book work and collaborate with businesses. Wow,
that is awesome. So then, now, John, you don't necessarily consider yourself, I guess, a domain investor, like hardcore. You don't, or said another way, you wouldn't, it's not that you own like thousands of domains.
No. I probably have like 50, 60.
And so now you've I guess in our pre-call we had a talk, and you had alluded to invest in not just strictly .com, and obviously we can see that with blackwallet.org, but you've also invested in some CTLDs, so like .io. Just kind of what goes through your mind as you're selecting domain names as a digital marketing strategist?
I like to tie, I love IO because there's so many one-word keywords available for .io. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. And I feel like it ties in really well with the tech industry because, the IO, power on, off type of vibe. So it has that nice tech-centric like tie to it. So I like .ios. I have a couple .cos. I'm not super proud of those, but I wasn't able to get my name, JohnDSaunders.com. Somebody's got it. I don't know what's going on with that. So I got the .co. And then one idea I had though was when I had my son, when we figured out his name, I was like, you know what? Let me buy his domain right now. Before he was even born, I bought his domain. I'm like, you know what? Let me just lock this in. I'll pay for it every year. If he doesn't end up using it, that's fine. But if he becomes, maybe he becomes an accountant or a ball player or I don't know, a professional gamer, at least he's got his domain locked in.
Right.
So I didn't want him to make the same mistake I did. I also .black is a new TLD that came out, so I bought a few of those. And I have.
You have any .digital?
I do. I have 54.digital. And that's about it.
So that's amazing. So I was like, man, we're cut from the same cloth here because all three of our kids, that's how they got their names, was domain availability. So a lot of people are like, you're kidding me, right? Like you basically name your kids on whether or not a domain name was available. And I'm like, that's yeah. Because when you have a common name, so even like for me, there is a Florida, well, at the time, and this was probably like a decade ago, but there was in Florida there was, I believe, a mayor that was named Alvin Brown. And I think he actually tried to run for governor as well. But they actually reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you have our name." I'm like, "No, I have my name. Like, this isn't your name.
What?
This is my name." So we went back and forth, and they were like, "Well, you should just use." They're like, "You already own at the time I had owned .net. I think I even owned .org." They were like, "You can use .net and just sell us, .com." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that." But I say that to get to the point of, it's like where you have physical real estate, everything, especially since COVID, has gone virtual real estate. And so to have your name is something special, especially when you have common names like myself, like yourself. I mean, we said it there in the opening, John P. Saunders. It's like, shoot, if you go by John Saunders, how many John Saunders are there in this world?
Oh man, it's crazy. Hundreds.
Yeah, exactly.
Hundreds.
But when you start talking about domain names, or when you look up, because there was like an IRS tax attorney named Alvin Brown that even reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, why don't you use alvinbrowntech.com?" I'm like, "No." I'm
How
like,
dare you?
I'm like, y'all
Tell
are
me how to use my
crazy.
name.
Exactly. I'm like, brother, like, but it's my name and I was born first. I'm like, oh, we're gonna play that card. Like, because you were born in the 60s and I was born in the 80s. I'm like, no, we're not doing that nonsense. If you didn't have the foresight to get your name, then I don't know what else to tell you. Good luck. Another extension, do something else. So it's just interesting. So then now, how do you qualify? Like when you're helping, when folks come to you at 54 Digital and they tell you an idea, but they don't necessarily have a name for it. Because in most cases, some people get an idea, they want to do a website. Like, how do you coach folks in terms of being able to qualify, purchasing or developing a given name for a brand?
We usually start with a brand discovery session. So once we onboard a client, we'll start with a brand discovery, and it's about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours session of just breaking down and compounding the brand. So we talk about what their mission statement is. We talk about their values. What are their main services? We talk about their competitors, other companies that they like or that they feel have a clean aesthetic. And then we come up with concepts and ideas for that logo, for that brand name. So sometimes it's, kind of like a random word. Sometimes it's a combination of words, and sometimes it's 2 words. And in many cases, it's just like a simple keyword. So It really comes down to figuring out what would work well, what would be easy to remember, and what would semantically be able to be spelled by someone that doesn't necessarily know the brand. Like one of the brand that we worked on is Showmigo. You say Showmigo and someone can most likely spell that out themselves without you having to like say it or write it down.
Gotcha. So then, because it was like you said, I think you alluded to it with Blackwalletorg.com. You were like, there was no search traffic prior to Black Illustrations, but because you actually went out and you built or developed Blackwalletorg.com, obviously everything now has kind of shifted to where you have search data that corresponds to, basically you went out and created your own market, if you will, in terms of an online space. Now, is that something that's highly recommended? Because obviously we have domain investors, we have domain developers on the call who are going to, for a lot of people, they say, well, the domain is everything. Like, if you don't have the right domain, then I don't care what business you have. Like, yeah, you can grow your business to be successful, but really with this, like, that takes you over the top. Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, if it has existing traffic, it's always best to piggyback off of that. Some SEO or search engine optimization specialists, what they'll do is they'll buy a domain. I mean, they'll buy another business just for the domain so they can redirect that traffic with 301 redirects, right? So they can siphon all that traffic to their site. So no, I think it's extremely important. For a new business, it might not necessarily be, but if you have an existing business, you want to make sure that, you're definitely rewiring that traffic to go to the right place. Because with Black Illustrations, it's more so, it's almost to the point where it's simplified, right? Black Illustrations. It's kind of hard to mess that up. And, there wasn't any search traffic. And here's the thing, there could have been search traffic, but there wasn't enough to warrant and see it in Google, right? So there could have been search traffic, but it would have been small where I couldn't even see it. But now if you do Black Illustrations, right, the volume is 1,600, the CPC is 58 cents. So potentially if I were to do ads for this, it would cost me 58 cents for the number one position. And then the competition for this keyword is 0.01. Competition at the highest is 1. So it's very low competition, but now we've created this avenue or this niche that we've basically taken over.
Interesting. Now, in terms of and you mentioned basically going out to create these niches or these niches, however you want to say it. What then, like, would you suggest, or how would you coach someone that's listening today that has, let's just say it's a domain investor or a developer that has, a couple hundred domains, and they're looking and they're saying, man, I want to develop, let's just say like a local market or geo-service domain. So something like, the only thing that comes to mind is something like, New York Pet Sitters, or let's say Miami Car Wash. Like, what would be your advice to them in terms of developing something and being able to turn it either via lead generation, web directory, AdSense, like kind of how would you coach them?
If they're focusing on a specific community, I definitely grab a domain with the city keyword in it. Like, for example, Miami Car Wash. If you can get Miami Car Wash or carwashmiami.com and you're focusing on that specific community, I think it's a great idea. Then you build out your website. The way I would do it is home, services, have specific pages for each service, and potentially have a locations page. And then on that locations page, you can have a specific page for every community in Miami with different copy, images, and a call to action on each page. So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. More so, and mention that keyword in the domain, and then make sure you have the keyword on the pages as H1, which is like a larger text that Google will scrape and read and index for you. That's a pretty competitive keyword, so it might take a while to rank, but ultimately I think that would be the best bet for a keyword. And then on the side, you can build other website platforms in other verticals and other areas specific to where you're trying to focus.
Interesting. So then kind of wrapping things up. So in terms of your blackwallet.org, blackillustrations.com, the illustratorhub.com, like, what's next for John D. Saunders? Like,
man, I'm done, man. I'm done.
You tell me you're done. I'm like, nah, man. It seems like you're just getting started.
So this is something I haven't talked about yet, but one of my goals is to write a screenplay. I'm big into movies. I love film. My biggest thing is you don't let people hinder what you want to do, man. People are always like, oh, stay in your lane, shut up and dribble, or focus on this. I think we only have one life to live. It's important to try things, test them out. The worst thing you can do, man, is learn something new. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the worst part of the scenario, that you learn something new. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you kind of go into something else. But for me, I look at people like, Issa Rae, who has a production company. She does videos. You look at someone like Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter. And then he also went on to found Square. Then you have people like Donald Glover or Childish Gambino, who's a rapper, actor, writer, singer, comedian. You know what I mean? Why do you have to be in one facet? If you're a creative, you can do so many different things. So 2 of my goals, man, I maintain these businesses, grow these businesses, have them operate essentially without me, in the day-to-day, which pretty much I'm out of that for the most part. And then just focus on developing this incubator where I can have this building and take these companies in. And then, man, work on my screenplay and write and just and retire. In other words, be able to have these businesses run without my direct input and just work on, really fun stuff. So pretty much more of what I'm doing now.
So it wouldn't surprise me if I look up and there's another .com.org project that comes out along the way.
I don't know, man. I'm going to take a break, at least a 2-year break. I'm going to build these businesses. Maybe I'll sell one of them. But ultimately, I'm going to pause for now and just focus on growing these things, man.
Awesome. So then tell me this, one question that just came to mind, and I know it would serve the listeners well, especially domain developers. Like, what would be your advice for someone looking to develop a domain and actually build their own remote team? If they have a portfolio of domains, let's say, 500 domains, 1,000 domains that they want to develop, and what would be your advice to them in terms of, hey, this is how I would go about building that remote team to be able to create the site, create the content, for their given domain portfolio outside of hiring 54digital.com.
No, of course. So my biggest advice would be to start small. Start with one domain and then use that domain as the blueprint for all of the others. So while you're developing, while you're creating your process with this first one, document everything, right? Step by step, how you're doing it, record yourself performing those actions, create a repository of all these step-by-step directions and video training. Because then once that's done, you're going to be like, yeah, this took me forever to do. But now you can take this and you can give it to another designer, another developer. You can hire an independent contractor. They can execute these steps on your behalf. And now you can scale your efforts.
No, that makes total sense. Total sense. I mean, and it's interesting because you're really beginning to streamline that approach. And a lot of people have asked, like, is it possible to fully automate domain development? And to a certain extent, I think you have pockets or degrees of that development that can be automated. But then there's also going to be high touch, in terms of, trying to look at data subjectively to determine, hey, does this domain actually make sense? Kind of like you did with Blackwalletorg.com, because either it has traffic or either it doesn't. And there's that subjective moment of, well, what do I do? Am I in this for the long haul of actually going to create a space that doesn't exist? Exactly. Or am I there to capitalize on what's there and, go from there? So last but not least, so what would your advice be to someone starting their journey in tech and entrepreneurship? Like, where should they start?
I say learn as much as you can from your peers. Join online communities, talk to people, network, ask questions, and then start a side project. Start a fun project. If you're into gaming, start a gaming blog or a YouTube channel. I think one of the best ways to learn is just by doing and taking. Don't necessarily think of, how am I going to monetize this? Just think about learning every step of the way. Maybe launch a print-on-demand store on Shopify. Whatever vertical you're trying to break into. 1, join the community, be a part of the community, ask questions. And then 2, start a side project and practice, what you're working on.
That's awesome advice. Awesome advice. So then, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners?
I just want to thank you, Alvin, for having me on the show, man. I'm excited. I appreciate you and what you do. And they could check me out. My website's johnbsaunders.co. I have a free email course on there where I drop weekly lessons on marketing, web design, and all that good stuff. Of course, free as well. And check it out. And that's it. That's all I got.
Man, well, with that, we're out of time. So, John, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial experience.
Oh, you're welcome, Alvin. Thank you again.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.